Have you ever wondered about the hidden dramas that unfold above us? Moments that transform a routine journey into an unforgettable, tragic spectacle? This is one such story. The plane, a vessel of routine travel, was suddenly seen in a sharp bank. Its left wingtip first struck a taxi on an overpass, then a fence, before it violently plunged into the river below. Out of the passengers and crew, 43 perished, yet 15 miraculously survived. The grim search for the remaining missing individuals continued. What began as just another scheduled flight swiftly devolved into an unimaginable nightmare. In an agonizingly brief span of approximately 2 minutes and 56 seconds, a chain of critical events led to a catastrophic impact in the Keelung River. The force of the crash tore the aircraft into multiple pieces. A total of 43 of the 58 souls aboard, that's 4 crew members and 39 passengers, lost their lives. What truly transpired in those harrowing approximately 2 minutes and 56 seconds? What sequence of decisions and misfortunes culminated in such a profound tragedy? We invite you to join us as we journey back to that fateful moment to truly grasp the unfolding of events. This is the gripping account of TransAsia Airways Flight 235. Setting the stage on February 4th, 2015, TransAsia Flight 235 began its departure, pushing back from its designated gate. Its destination, Kinmen, an island situated just off the coast of Taiwan. The aerial voyage from Taipei's Songshan Airport to Kinmen typically spans approximately 50 to 60 minutes. The aircraft at the heart of this incident was an ATR-72-600. This model represented a newer generation compared to the ATR-72-500, both of which were staples in TransAsia Airways' fleet. These turboprops generally offer seating for anywhere from 68 to 78 passengers. This specific aircraft was quite new, manufactured in 2014, and had accumulated a modest approximately 1,627 flight hours before the tragic event. Powering its flight were 2 robust Pratt & Whitney engines. On the day of the disaster, the flight crew was scheduled for 2 round-trip journeys between Songshan and Kinmen. The cockpit crew comprised 3 individuals, 2 active pilots, and an observer pilot. The total crew consisted of 5 individuals, 3 flight crew, 2 active pilots, and an observer pilot, and 2 cabin crew. The man in command, occupying the left seat, was Captain Liao Chuncheng, aged 42. He had amassed a considerable flight history of nearly 5,000 hours, with 250 of those specifically on the ATR-72-600. His assigned schedule that day involved 4 flight segments. The initial 2 flights proceeded without any notable issues. However, it was during the 3rd segment, with 58 people relying on his command, that the story took its devastating turn. Captain Liao's journey to the cockpit wasn't straightforward. After concluding his service in the military, he transitioned to a civilian airline. During his initial training for this new role, he encountered significant hurdles. Specifically, he struggled with the demands of multitasking, the crucial art of prioritizing, making swift decisions, and maintaining performance when under intense pressure. During that period, he received additional training and checks. He later left that airline. Yet, his ambition persisted. Despite that professional setback, he joined TransAsia Airways in August 2010. There, he successfully completed his first officer training and, over time, was considered for the highly sought-after command upgrade. However, even during this advanced command upgrade process, his performance remained marginal. He famously failed his final simulator test. Nevertheless, after receiving additional specialized training, he managed to pass a recheck and was subsequently promoted to captain the following month. His training records consistently highlighted difficulties when faced with emergency scenarios, particularly engine failures during takeoff. While he eventually cleared all mandatory evaluations, persistent concerns lingered regarding his capacity to manage stress and execute emergency protocols effectively. TransAsia Airways provided remedial training for specific deficiencies, but it conspicuously lacked a comprehensive, overarching review program designed to address recurrent performance issues. This absence of a systematic framework for evaluating pilot performance meant that deep-seated weaknesses in critical operational areas went unaddressed, thus presenting a silent, lurking safety hazard. Seated in the right seat, serving as the co-pilot, was 45-year-old Captain Liu Such-chung. He brought to the flight deck an extensive experience of nearly 7,000 flying hours, with 794 of those dedicated to the ATR-72-600. Adding another layer of experience to the cockpit, on the jump seat, was 63-year-old First Officer Hung Ping-chung. He was present for an observation flight, an integral part of his ongoing training. His logbook boasted an impressive over 16,000 flying hours, though only 8 of those were specifically on the ATR-72-600. After the customary procedure of starting both engines, the crew commenced taxiing towards the runway, preparing for their departure. Air traffic control instructed them to adhere to the Mucha to Quebec departure procedure. This protocol mandated a right turn shortly after takeoff and a climb to an altitude of 5,000 feet. Crucially, this departure procedure also incorporated an engine out standard instrument departure, or EISD. For those unfamiliar, an EISD is a predefined, special flight path meticulously designed for an aircraft that experiences an engine failure immediately after lifting off. In such a critical event, pilots are obligated to follow this route. This specialized path is engineered to ensure they can safely navigate around any potential obstacles that would be exceptionally challenging to avoid with only a single engine functioning. During their taxi toward the runway, the cockpit was filled with numerous discussions between the pilot monitoring and the first officer. The pilot monitoring was explaining the intricacies and differences between the ATR-72-600 and the older 72-500 model to the first officer. However, these conversations were not in line with the sterile cockpit rule, a critical aviation safety regulation that prohibits non-essential communication during taxiing, takeoff, and landing. While the intention might have been to educate the observer pilot as part of his training, these extended discussions clearly became a source of distraction. It's plausible this distraction led to the omission of a thorough pre-takeoff briefing. To offer a comprehensive understanding of this complex narrative, we will first present the accident's progression accompanied by explanatory animations and definitions of technical terms. Following this detailed breakdown, we will then replay a second version of the incident, stripped of these aids, to immerse you in the sheer, disorienting speed at which these events unfolded. At 10:51 a.m. local time, the aircraft commenced its takeoff roll from runway 10. A mere 4 seconds into the acceleration, the pilot monitoring detected something deeply unsettling. "The ATPCS is not armed, really?" he queried, followed by the concerning observation, "Yet takeoff inhibit." Despite both pilots being aware of this critical takeoff inhibit warning, the pilot flying made the decision not to abort the takeoff, instead instructing the crew to proceed as planned. The precise rationale behind this decision remains shrouded in the fog of that tragic moment. It's speculated that his extensive background with the ATR-72-500, where continuing takeoff under certain ATPCS unarmed conditions was permissible, might have influenced his judgment in this pivotal instant. Let's clarify what the ATPCS, or Automatic Takeoff Power Control System, actually is. This system is a vital safety feature engineered to support pilots during takeoff. Once activated, it diligently monitors the power output of both engines. Should it detect one engine losing power, signaling a potential failure, the ATPCS automatically triggers the auto feather unit. This clever mechanism rapidly adjusts the propellers of the failing engine into a feathered position, which dramatically minimizes drag, a process aptly named auto-feathering. Beyond feathering, the ATPCS also provides a power boost of approximately 10% to the remaining operational engine, substantially enhancing the aircraft's takeoff performance. Here lies a critical distinction. On the ATR-72-500, pilots could, under specific circumstances, continue a takeoff even if they struggled to arm the ATPCS. However, this was a TransAsia company-specific policy, and for the ATR-72-600 crews were trained to reject the takeoff if the ATPCS couldn't be armed. However, the company lacked a clearly documented and disseminated written policy, and this was not clearly reflected in official manuals. TransAsia Airways documentation and policies lacked clarity on this crucial operational difference. Shortly after the aircraft lifted off, achieving a positive rate of climb, the landing gear was retracted. As the plane continued its ascent, the crew configured the autopilot to reach an altitude of 5,000 feet and an airspeed of 115 knots. The control tower at Songshan then directed the flight crew to establish contact with Taipei approach as the aircraft initiated a right turn and climbed past 1,000 feet. The situation took a terrifying turn as the aircraft maintained its right turn and ascended beyond 1,200 feet. A loud master warning blared in the cockpit, and an ominous message, Engine 2 Flame-Out Takeoff Procedure, illuminated on the engine warning display. Can you imagine the sudden surge of adrenaline and confusion in that moment? Unbeknownst to the pilots, Engine Number 2's auto-feather unit had catastrophically malfunctioned. The root cause was later traced to manufacturing quality defects, specifically faulty soldering joints. This critical failure inadvertently triggered the automatic takeoff power control system sequence, resulting in the unintended auto-feathering of Engine Number 2's propellers. This adjustment reduced drag, but at the cost of the engine's power. Simultaneously, Engine Number 1 was operating in an up-trim condition, with its bleed valve closed, which effectively maximized the power output of the healthy engine. Mere seconds later, the ATPCS sequence concluded. The right engine was now fully feathered and completely devoid of power. As the aircraft climbed through 1,300 feet, the autopilot disconnected, and the pilot flying immediately assumed manual control of the aircraft. Notably, there was a chilling silence. No verbal exchanges or announcements regarding the autopilot's disconnection occurred between the crew members. Reports on this critical event offered differing accounts. The Aviation Safety Council, in its official report, confirms that the pilot flying manually disconnected the autopilot at 10 hours 52 minutes and 41 seconds. This decision was noted in the executive summary as a risk factor, highlighting the pilot's choice to increase workload. While an autopilot typically possesses the capability to manage an engine failure, the sudden necessity for manual control dramatically intensified the stress on the crew. In the midst of the chaos, a voice from the cockpit was heard. I will pull back Engine 1 throttle. Wait a second, cross-check. Astonishingly, without first carrying out the essential engine failure identification procedure, the pilot flying retracted the power lever of Engine 1 from 75 to 66 degrees. This crucial alteration, concerning the only functioning engine, went unnoticed by the monitoring captain. It was an incredibly puzzling maneuver, considering this was the sole engine still providing thrust. It appears the pilot flying mistakenly identified Engine 1 as the faulty unit. Amidst this, both the pilot flying and the pilot monitoring declared heading mode, and the flight continued. As the aircraft persisted in its climb, the chosen heading was adjusted to 092 degrees, while the pilot flying maintained a continuous turn to the left. More frantic exchanges followed. Okay, engine flame out check up trim, yes, auto feather, yes. Then, an urgent instruction, okay, watch the speed. The indicated airspeed had now dwindled to a mere 101 knots, a concerning 14 knots below the selected airspeed, and just a few knots above the dreaded stall warning speed. The pilot flying then instructed, pull back Number 1, and subsequently reduced the power lever of Engine 1 further to 49 degrees. A confirmation then came through. Okay, now Number 2 engine flameout confirmed. As the aircraft reached its highest recorded altitude for the flight, 1,630 feet, the indicated airspeed mode automatically disengaged, reverting to pitch hold mode. This was a grim signal. The engines were no longer generating sufficient power to maintain the climb. The cockpit then filled with desperate cries. Terrain ahead. Okay, lower you are. Followed by a chilling low. An initial stall warning sounded briefly, and moments later, both stick shakers activated for about 6 seconds. For those unfamiliar, stick shakers are mechanical devices integrated into aircraft controls to alert pilots when the plane is approaching an aerodynamic stall. When engaged, these devices violently vibrate the control column, acting as an urgent, physical warning to the pilot to take immediate corrective action and prevent a full stall. Another urgent command. Okay, push back, wait a second, throttle. The pilot flying reacted by advancing the power lever of Engine 2 to 86 degrees, but then, in a devastating move, pulled the power lever of engine number 1 to the idle position. The aircraft held its continuous left turn, with an angle of bank between 10 to 20 degrees, rapidly descending at an airspeed of 101 knots. The confusion was palpable. "Number 1 feather, shut off number feather," the pilot monitoring exclaimed, his bewilderment entirely understandable given the overwhelming cascade of information the crew had to process in an unimaginably short time frame. To exacerbate the already dire situation, the stick shakers and stick pushers were activated yet again. The pilot flying then definitively shut off engine 1, and just 6 seconds later, its propellers settled into the feathered position. With that, both engines were now lost. A frantic cry pierced the air. "Mayday! Mayday! Engine flame out!" The aircraft began to bank sharply to the right. The flight crew desperately attempted to engage the autopilot twice, but their efforts were fruitless. A bewildered voice echoed through the cockpit. "How come it becomes like this? Both sides lost. No engine flame out. We lost both sides." A desperate instruction followed. "Restart the engine," a plea that was repeated 8 times as they flew at an altitude of 545 feet with an airspeed of 105 knots. Tragically, the crew failed to identify and rectify the total loss of power from both engines in time. During their frantic attempts to restart the engines, the aircraft stalled and began an uncontrolled bank to the left, plummeting from an altitude that offered no hope of recovery. The realization of the fatal error came with a final, horrified exclamation. "Wow, pulled back the wrong side throttle." The aircraft's left wing violently struck a taxi on the overpass, then collided with a fence. After these impacts, it continued its left bank and plunged into the river, inverted. To truly comprehend the relentless, unforgiving pace of these events, let's revisit the incident from its inception. This time, we'll watch it again, but without any visual aids or technical explanations. This unadorned approach offers a raw, unfiltered perspective, allowing us to truly grasp the lightning-fast progression of each critical moment. The ATPCS is not armed, really? Yeah, takeoff inhibit. Continue to take off, we will continue. Oh, there it is, ATPCS armed. A pause, a climb. I will pull back engine 1 throttle. Wait a second, cross-check. Heading mode. Heading mode. The turn, the descent. Okay, engine flame out check, 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 up trim, yes, auto feather, yes. Okay, watch the speed. Pull back number 1. Okay, now number 2 engine flame out confirmed. The desperate warnings. Turn ahead. Okay, lower you are. Low. Okay, push back. Wait a second, throttle, throttle. The final, irreversible error. Number 1 feather, shut off, number feather. Mayday, mayday. Engine flame out. How come it becomes like this? Both sides lost. No engine flame out. We lost both sides. Restart the engine. Wow, pull back the wrong side throttle. The forceful impact with the river caused the aircraft to fragment into numerous pieces. This catastrophe resulted in the loss of 43 lives from the 58 individuals on board, a grim count that included 4 crew members and 39 passengers. Additionally, 13 passengers and 1 cabin crew member sustained severe injuries, while 1 passenger suffered only minor harm. The prior collision with the taxi on the overpass left the taxi driver seriously injured and the taxi's sole passenger with minor injuries. Despite the sheer terror and devastation, the survivors of the crash managed to escape the wreckage. Crucially, both the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder were recovered intact, providing invaluable data for the investigation. The accident was ultimately attributed to a confluence of multiple factors. A primary contributor was a malfunction within engine number 2's auto-feathering unit, which inadvertently triggered an uncommanded auto-feathering during takeoff. Following this, the pilot flying mistakenly reduced power on the still-functioning engine number 1, and, in a critical error, eventually shut it down completely. During the fateful shutdown of engine number 1, the flight crew engaged in non-standard procedures and callouts. This occurred in a noisy, chaotic cockpit environment already fraught with frequent stall warnings. This disarray robbed the crew of any opportunity to systematically assess and comprehend the unfolding crisis, severely impeding their understanding that the thrust had primarily been lost on engine number 2. The total loss of engine power, combined with the aircraft's pitch attitude, pushed the angle of attack to the stall warning threshold. Ultimately, the aircraft entered an irreversible stall, from which the crew was powerless to recover. This tragic crash marked the second fatal accident for the airline within a single year. Following the calamitous events of Flight 222 and Flight 235, TransAsia Airways ultimately ceased all operations and filed for bankruptcy.